Hello there and welcome back. This is an 8th grade math video, and this video is going to be focusing on how to evaluate exponents when you have negative bases. Okay, here is our first example. This example is -3 to the second power. So one thing I want to point out here that's kind of important when you're evaluating negatives as part of your base is that where the parentheses are placed kind of tells you how to evaluate this. So for example, you can see in this problem, the parentheses is wrapped around the negative and the 3. That means the whole base is -3. So that means the exponential number is how many times we are multiplying that base. So we're going to multiply it twice. Now the base is everything inside the parentheses. So that means -3 and -3. So if we multiply -3 times -3, we end up with +9. So that is how we evaluate that. Now, what if it was written as -3 to the second power? So you might be thinking, oh, that looks the same. But really, it's not, because there's no parentheses around the entire -3. What that is that's -1 times 3 to the second power. Now, 3 to the second power is 9, as we know, but if we have that -1 outside it, now we end up with a -9. So that's why it's important to look at the parentheses, if there are any, and to determine what exactly is the base. Okay, here's our next example we're going to evaluate. We're going to evaluate -3 to the third power. So like we just talked about, the parentheses are wrapped around the entire negative in 3. So the exponential number tells us how many times we're multiplying the base. 1, 2, 3 times. Now, what's inside the parentheses is the entire base. So that negative is attached to the 3, and that is our base. So this is going to be -3, -3, and -3. So -3 times -3 is +9. Then we would need to multiply it by -3 to finish it, which is -27. So that's what we would get when we evaluate this. Now, if it was -3 to the third power, that would be like -1 times 3 to the third power, which means -1 times 27, which gives us -27. So as you can see, again, where the parentheses are, or if there even are parentheses, is very important to how we evaluate it. Okay, here's our next exponent we're going to evaluate. It's -4 to the 0 power. Okay, so now this one is a little bit tricky because we have a negative outside of 4 to the 0 power, right? So that's like doing -1 times 4 to the 0 power. So what we need to do is first evaluate 4 to the 0 power. As I talked about in a previous video about evaluating exponents, any base to the 0 power is 1. So I'm going to replace that 4 to the 0 power with 1, and then we have -1 times 1, which gives us -1. So -4 to the 0 power is the same as -1. Now, if that -4 was wrapped in parentheses like this, that would be a whole different thing, because now the negative is part of the base, and then any base to the 0 power is equal to 1. So that would be equal to +1. Okay, here is our next one. We have -4 to the second power, and that -4 is wrapped in parentheses. So the little number up here, the exponential number, tells us how many times we're multiplying the base. So we're going to multiply it twice. And then since the parentheses is wrapped around the negative and the 4, the entire base is -4. So I'm going to put -4 here and -4 here. If I multiply those, I get +16. So this is equal to +16. Okay, here is our last example for today's video. We're evaluating the exponent -10 to the third power, and -10 is wrapped in parentheses. So the little exponential number up here, 3, tells us how many times we're multiplying the base. So that's going to be 1, 2, 3 times. And since the parentheses is wrapped around the negative and the 10, that is the base. It is negative 10. So negative 10, negative 10, and negative 10. Well, 10 times 10 here is positive 100, or sorry, negative 10 times negative 10 is positive 100. Then we have to multiply it by negative 10. So that's going to equal negative 1,000. So negative 10 to the third power is the same as negative 1,000. All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope to see you in another video soon.